Hello everyone, so here we are, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday in the middle of the day in Australia. I'm on holiday, so I'm doing my video early, which is great. And we gave you the first prompt, which was to do your title page. So I'm going to give you the second prompt straight away, just because we do like to give it at the start of the video. So the first spring prompt that we are doing is spring bulbs. So I have a couple of examples. Now this one's quite dirty, this doily. I might see if I can soak it out a bit. I don't mind a bit of staining, but I'd probably cut around that anyway, but this one's prettier, so I might just use that one. So that's a daffodil. But spring bulbs, so any kind of bulbs you want that remind you of spring, so new growth bulbs, jonquils, tulips, hyacinths, things like that. So you decide what you want to do. Spring bulbs is the prompt. Okay, so I'm going to get onto this in a little while, but I'm going to spend a bit of time in this video just going through some of the basics. There has been a little bit of confusion, particularly I would say probably from new people who don't know how we work and haven't done a project before. So a few things I want to say is, number one, this project is yours. We don't dictate the project to you and how you do your own thing. So you can try the concertina book like we're doing. You can do your project in a different way. You might want to just do it as a normal book where you just have pages that you open. One person this morning asked if it was okay to do a pillow with the 4 seasons in the corner. Yeah, absolutely. You can do your own thing. The only thing we ask is that when you're posting photos in our Facebook group, you've got to make sure that your slow stitch photos relate specifically to this project, and you've done it with the intention of doing a Roxy's project. There are so many other slow stitch groups on Facebook, many of which Rach and I are in, where you can share your lovely stuff that's unrelated, but our group, we made it specifically for people to share our project. The other thing is it's slow stitching, and by my definition, that does not include a sewing machine. Okay, so if you are stitching with a sewing machine, you might argue with me, you can go for your life, but that's not what I think of as slow stitching. Okay, so I think of slow stitching obviously as hand stitching, but I think of slow stitching as where you would obviously do some Canther style stitching, you would do some embroidery, you have almost like a mixed media, mixed textile kind of fabrics where you're doing different layers and things like that. I'm not saying I'm the expert, I didn't invent it, but yeah, so we've seen a few things come up that look like there's no hand stitching on them at all, and that's really not slow stitching to me. So I'm going to explain a few more basics just to make sure people understand, because we have had some questions. So firstly, your book cover. So I showed you last week my book cover is going to be this green one. So what my plan is, this title page will end up getting glued on the inside of my book. Okay, actually I was going to wrap that over that edge there and glue it down. Okay, so that will be fixed in place. Hopefully you get the idea. And when we mean concertina, it would be glued just to there, and then my next page will fold on top of it, and my next page will fold on top of it, and so on. Okay, so all my pages will be folded on, and eventually that last page will be glued onto the back cover. So there won't actually be any spine, there'll just be all your folded pages in the middle. Sorry, can you see that? Folded pages in the middle. So just the front and back pages would be glued onto the book. Now, you can't really stitch them on. What my plan will be, once this is glued down, is I will plan to put a slow stitch piece of some description that will cover the rest of this book. So you actually won't even see this book at all. It's just the hard surface that I'm using. Okay, in terms of the back of your piece, let's take this off, and I've got my back. That's not very attractive. Eventually, you could actually do more slow stitching and then stitch them together to make it double-sided. I'm just grabbing some random fabrics. I have just been pulling apart some old quilts, so I might decide that I want to put some different fabrics on the back and stitch them down. So in the end, it would be double-sided. I think what I'm going to do is put floral fabric. So this is an old grungy quilt. It needs a soak because it's dirty. But for example, look how dirty it is. But anyway, love the grungy look. I might do that piece, and then I might have, this is part of the other side of that grungy quilt. And then that might be on the next page. I might have different fabrics on each page. And I love all these old grungy fabrics, but this one does need a soak because it's super, super gross and dirty. So your back side will be up to you, but you really don't need to decide that right now. You could leave your back till the end. I'm probably going to leave the back till the end. I might add different liberties because I'm definitely adding liberties throughout this piece. What else did I want to tell you? There's some basics. I'm going to show you in a minute how I stitch this on because I didn't show that last week. I just pieced it together and show you what I do. So I'm going to add the next bit. The other question I had was, how big does your page need to be? Well, I can't tell you that because it depends on what size book you're using. So for my title page, I had to make sure that it went pretty close to the top, and I actually deliberately added on extra here to wrap it around. You could just have it stopping there where you don't wrap it around, but the length of it will be determined by how many pages you do. Okay, and the pages is up to you. Just if you're new here, Rach and I are very, very easy going with our projects. That's just our style. We don't measure much. Well, she doesn't measure anything. I don't measure much at all. And it'll be just how we feel about it. So I might want to do a double page for a prompt, or I might want to do a single page. I would say if you have a small book, really tiny one, I was thinking of doing a really small traveler's notebook. I mean, not traveler's notebook, field notes journal. A little one like a passport size, but I felt it was going to be too small for me to add the floral details and the fabrics. So sometimes I might do one page, sometimes I might really love the prompt and do two. So you might decide to do one for every prompt, which means you'll have 12 pages, plus your title page, and then you'll probably want one more to even it out at the end, which might be some kind of end piece. It's up to you. So we are very easygoing about our projects, and we're not going to constantly say you have to do this, you have to do that. Because really, who's checking you? No one. This is your project. You should enjoy it. Come up with your own ideas. So I can't tell you how long it needs to be because I don't have your book, and I'm going to show you today how you add on more fabric. So it doesn't matter if this is short at the moment. I'm going to show you today. It's super simple to add on more. So we're going to do that first. So my first calico piece just ripped, no measuring, of course. And I've ripped up some more, and it doesn't even matter if it's not the same type of calico. It is going to be covered. Look, this piece I got from the sewing basket, and it's already, someone had drawn on it. So it will all get covered. So attaching your page is simple. Just get your next strip, line it up, try and eyeball it. Measure it if you're more precise. Sometimes quilters have trouble with this go with the flow style. They're more precise, and cross stitches, you're much more precise. This is definitely no pattern, do what you want. And then I just get a normal sewing machine cotton, pin it, keep it in place so it doesn't move around. Just a normal sewing machine cotton, and I just do a very large running stitch. So I'm going to stitch down this edge, and then I'm going to turn around and come back down the other edge, so I've got no flappy bits. Okay, so I've made my string super long, like way more than I should. Okay. Let's move these up a bit. Hopefully you can see I'm on camera. And to attach, why are you sitting awkwardly? Because I put it in the wrong spot. Hang on, let me do that again. Okay, so do that again. And a very large running, it's almost like tacking. I'm really just tacking them together. That's what I'm doing. Super long. It won't take you, super long stitches, it won't take you very long at all to get these fabrics together. big dog's teeth, chunky stitches, tacking stitches. By the time you lay everything onto this and do all your stitching, this won't be going anywhere. So as you need to add more, you can just add more. So you don't need to stress if you don't think you've made it long enough. Because we can always... That's the thing about slow stitching, is mistakes, or what you think is a mistake, is not a big deal. Just either work it in or fix it. You know, if you're following a pattern, you make a mistake, it could stuff up the whole project. But with this, it's not going to stuff up anything. So I can just see under here where the fabric is, and I want to come over and do long stitches along here just to hold down the edges on both sides. All right. Super uneven, but as I said, we're not going to see them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I then add my next pages, and I am using, if you feel like that's not strong enough, you can always run another line. Like I could do another, it's so quick. I could do another line straight up the middle. So what I'm going to show you today, even though I said I wasn't going to always use Rachel's things, at the moment I am, because I'm loving the look. And after all, I did make her design them for me. So at the moment, I'm just going to use them. And if I decide to do different, I decide to do different. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can do different options, because obviously you don't have to have Rachel's digi prints on fabric to make yours look wonderful. What I would do is I would go for some kind of neutrally kind of coloured background, like it's a page of a field note journal, which is usually like something like watercolour paper or something like that. And then you can add your details on top. So if I wasn't using Rachel's pages, what I would probably do is use bits of neutral fabrics, like different linens, different textured neutrals. Okay, obviously the vintage textiles are great. So I'll give you an example of that. So this is a bit of an offcut. I think it was off an old tablecloth. Obviously this has got holes in, but that part, if I just had the plain linen, you could even collage some different types, or I might use something like this is an old towel. It's got lovely texture and a lovely edge. So, you know, I might put that there for some texture, etc. So you decide. If you go really bright and colourful, you may have trouble having your features pop out. So if you see on my title page, I've added some features and they pop out quite nicely because the background's fairly neutral. So let's go to the next step. So I'll show you what I'm thinking of doing. I'm going to pin it in place. Well, actually, I'm going to lay it out. Then I'm going to show you how I stitch this down. So this is my next page of Rachel's that I want to use. And what I wanted to be careful of, where's my book gone? See, I move things around, I can't find them. So here's my book. So I'm just using this as a guide to measure. Now, what would be probably better is if I actually iron my creases in, and I might, where are my clips? Why can't I see them? They normally, oh, here they are. Just looking for these. Okay, so I'm just going to clip this in place so you get the idea. I wouldn't glue this until the end. I'm just clipping it. I'm just trying to clip it down straight. And what I'll probably do off camera is I'll get the iron out. Heaven forbid, I don't do that very often. And I think I should iron my creases so I can see where I'm working to. Okay, so this page is going to fold just inside my book. So if we have a look there, it'll sit just inside it. So that's where I'd iron my crease. So I'll just clip it for the moment. Okay, so that's my first 2 pages there. And then this one would again fold. Eventually you won't see that line because there'll be all fabric there. So that page is going to come right up to the edge of that fabric. All right, so I am unclipping this. I was just doing that so you get the idea of where it's all going to sit. So I'm going to unclip this and I'll go ahead and iron that. And I'll probably show you that a bit later, ironed. I must say, iron it first. Don't do what I do and do everything in the wrong order. Ironing it first will give you a better guide on where your pages go to. Oh, hello. Bobby, no, off, Bob. Go, Bob. Always the way when I'm at this table sewing. She wants to come pussyfoot my mat. It's her favourite mat. Okay, so my 3rd page will start there. So what I'm going to do is give you an idea of my next step. So I've cut out another page of Rachel's. Now I've cut this one deliberately because that's kind of almost like a little bit of a pink tone. And these pages are a little bit shorter than what my book is, like I told you last week. So being linen, this is a little bit floppy, but I would pin that in place. And I'm going to show you how I do the little invisible stitch, which I did on this one. But just so you get the idea of how this is working, I then would get some little bits of fabric. So I'm pulling out some pinks because it's spring colours. So I'm going to do some sort of pinks, yellows, maybe apricot-y colours. So I want some linen in different places. So that's a little bit of old feed sack. And what I'm going to do, another little piece of Liberty, another nice pink bit. This is going to be how I do my borders. Love that, it's pretty. Another bit of Liberty. So in between pages, I'm always going to have little bits of fabric. So I got this lovely little embroidery. Thank you, Vicky. So that will end up, just seeing if I'm on camera. Yes, that will end up going on a page. And I've got some lovely old Suffolk puffs, quite large ones. That might go on a page. So I might decide to do 1, 2, 3 spring pages, or I might add another one and keep going. So then my beautiful daffodils will get cut out and will eventually be on this page here, or they could be here because I could do a double. I don't know. I'm going to work that out as they go along. So the step that I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how you do that invisible stitch. So you've got some different options for stitching down pages. So I'm putting down a big one. You could collage pieces and stitch them down. You've got some different options, and I'll just quickly explain them, particularly for the newbies. So probably the 2 threads that I would use for this kind of stitching on of base pages would either be just a sewing machine cotton. So this is an old 100% cotton. Or I'd use an old crochet cotton, or a pearl number 8 you can use. This is an old crochet one. It's a bit smaller. If I get a pearl number 8, whoops, don't know if you can see, but the pearl number 8 is a little bit thicker. You can get a thinner in the crochet. I use crochet cotton all the time. Just seeing if I've got one here. I like the old ones like that. It's quite a white one. I like, where's one like this? Hang on. You can tell I've used this one a bit. Sorry, I'm in a tangle. I like this one. I like the old ones that are off-white, and they're thinner than pearl. But you can use pearl. You can use other threads as well, but to be honest, I would probably just use either of them. So you've got 2 choices. Well, you've got more than that, but I think the 2 choices I use. The invisible stitch, which I'm going to show you in a sec, which I just use this for because you really don't want to see the thread too much. Or you can do the Canther stitching, which is what I've done there. And if you use a thicker cotton, it becomes like the crochet cotton, it becomes more of a feature. Okay, so invisible stitch. My needle. Okay, I've already got it threaded up with some cotton. So all this is a running stitch, but on the top side you do a very tiny stitch that you can't see very well, and on the underside you do a longer stitch. So it's not 100% invisible, but really it blends in, and by the time you put your slow stitching stuff on top, you can't even notice it. So this would be where you want to just get the fabric down. It does give it lovely texture. That's got a bit of texture, which is lovely, but you don't want to make too much of a feature of the stitching. If you want to make a bit more of a feature, the Canther style or running stitch is good. So I'm just going to start on the top. It doesn't matter if you don't go in perfect lines. I certainly don't. I want to start quite close to the top because I want this to stay nice and secure. So I've come up there and I'm just going to do a really tiny little stitch and then a long stitch on the back and come through. Maybe try not to stab myself. Okay, so seeing where I came out, tiny little stitch, long stitch. And once you get it going, you can do more than one. So tiny little stitch, long stitch, tiny little stitch, long stitch. So this is not going to take you as long as Canther stitching takes you, because you do that really long stitch, it's quicker. And like I said, you don't need to be perfectly even. You're really just holding the fabric in place. Tiny stitch, long stitch. So if we refer to invisible stitch, this is what we're doing. And I'm going to get to the end and we just do rows of this, okay? Back and forth, back and forth. I love numbers on things. I was actually thinking of stamping some numbers on my pages. I think I'm going to. So in terms of like script and things like that, because field notes journals often have script and little notes about what people are seeing. Did Rach mention this or did we just talk about it? I can't remember. I think it'd be really cool to put some quotes from Edith Holden's nature notes. Now remember, you don't have to go and buy the book. If you look her up on Pinterest, you're going to see heaps. So yeah, you could put some quotes, or it might be some kind of your favorite spring poem, or you just want to write a little description. So you can stamp, you can embroider, it's up to you. I think I might do a combination. I might stamp and embroider sometimes and then maybe just stamp. I'm going to see how that looks. I might give it a test run on some other fabric just to see what the stamping looks like before doing it. So I don't know if I've shown you yet. You can get little alphabet stamps, like they don't have to all be big ones. I've got some little ones. I'll find them and show you. I've forgotten a knot. Is that not? Okay, I think I've got it. Okay, so I just came down a little bit and I'll just do lines of this. Don't need that anymore. Just making sure I do only little stitches on top, otherwise you're going to see them and they look a bit messy. Okay, so I'm going to jump off camera and I'm going to finish stitching this down and then I'll come back and show you where I'm at. Back in a sec. All right, so this panel is all stitched down and then I've actually Canther stitched those three pieces in this piece. I'm just going to quickly show you how I do that. So in case you don't know. So Canther stitch is just running stitch. Canther, K-A-N-T-H-A is how you spell it. Canther is a style of quilt that are Indian. They come from India. And what they used to do is, or they probably still do, is layer lots of pieces of fabric. The fabric's fairly thin, but they layer lots of pieces of fabric on top of each other. And then they basically just do a running stitch and cover the whole quilt in running stitch, and it makes beautiful quilts. And I've got a few Canthers. I know Rach does, Mum does, we all do. And then even some Canther quilt scraps. And when you actually take them apart, sometimes you can find like just really lovely fabrics that you can use in slow stitching that are sandwiched in the quilt. They're often quite bright colours. The stitching style or quilt making style is very similar to the Japanese Boro quilts, B-O-R-O, where they also did running stitch all over their quilts, and that's an ancient form of quilt from Japan. Yeah, so it's similar, using Japanese fabrics, often navy blue and things like that. So we just call it Canther stitching. A lot of people refer to it as Canther stitching. Okay, so just doing lines, and you can see I'm messy. I am not consistent with my stitches. Yeah, they run all over the place. Now, one thing to note is that I probably should have cut these strips of fabric just a touch wider, because I did stitch it over, but it's popped out. So that's simple. I was going to put a Suffolk puff there anyway, so that will cover that up so you won't see it. But if it does pop up, like this one's looking like it might pop up as well, you can always put a little piece of lace or something to cover it. Okay, so all you do is lines of stitches. It doesn't matter how far apart they are. You can just decide what you like the look of. So I'll stitch this one in place. Then I'll come back to my first spring page with my bulbs, and I'll talk to you about what I'm going to do. Yep, see, that's popped up already. So what I'll do is I'll just put something over that. You won't see it. So that's the beauty of slow stitching, with layers upon layers upon layers. If you get little hiccups like that, you just cover them up and you wouldn't even know they're there. I can even just put another little strip of fabric over the top to stitch it down. Actually, the more sort of layers and textures you get, the better anyway. So for my first spring page, I am going to just do one page because it's just opposite the title page. And because this has got green and yellow tones, this one actually goes really well. I've cut out the, I know you're upside down, but I've cut out the daffodil, and it will go really well with my first page. It's like they were deliberately planned when they actually weren't. It just happened. And then I might do a double page next week. Oh, not next week, 2 weeks. So you've got 2 weeks for your prompts. I'll just remind you, because yes, we've had these questions too. How many prompts are there? There are 12 in total, 3 per season, and they're going to come out every 2 weeks. So this is the first week of the bulbs, and then you'll have another week to finish off. So we'll come back and show you our progress on our bulb page, and then we'll have the next prompt. What else was asked? I'm trying to think of any other questions that came up a bit. I think I went through how many pages, your choice, 1 or 2. You can mix it up. Was there anything else that was asked a bit? Just trying to cover everything off this week, so hopefully there's no confusion. Look how annoying that is, it just pops up. It's because my fabric wasn't quite wide enough, and I've got a loose thread there which I want to get out. And now that's just going to fray all the way along. Okay, I'll cover that with something. I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to tell you. Can't remember. I'll come back to it. So I have to keep turning my fabric around because you sew from right to left, unless you're a lefty like Rach, and then she would sew the opposite direction. Someone asked me that once, which direction do you sew? I'm like, you have to sew right to left if you're a right-hander, because you can't sew that way. That's just awkward. No one would be able to do that. It must have been a beginner. That's okay. There's no silly questions. Now, I haven't fully decided what I'm doing on my page yet. I do know that daffodil's going on. Sorry, a bit of thread. These pages here are basically like pre-preparing for spring. Oh, did I say that the spring prompts are all going to be released? My videos will come first. Unless, of course, I have a week where I get stuck and I don't get things done, which can happen. But that's the goal. So this first 6 weeks for spring will come out on my channel first, and Rachel's video will come out second. And then she will do the prompts first for summer, then I'll do the prompts first for autumn, then she'll do winter at the end. We just like to take it in turns. I think I said there are other ways of stitching down fabric. Now, these other ways, I wouldn't do it with a big piece like this. If you were doing lots of little pieces like this, the other way you could stitch them down, but I don't normally do it because I don't like the look as much, is just to stitch around the outside. So you could do a blanket stitch. You could do an overcast stitch, which I can show you. An overcast is just going over the edge. I overcast stitched these down, and I'll overcast stitch this down. Or you could just do a running stitch just on the inside. So yeah, I would do that if your fabric pieces are not too big. But if they're big like this, I wouldn't do that, because then this fabric gets a bit all puffy and you might wrinkle it. And I like the look of the Canther or the invisible stitch best. Finish off for newbies, I just stick it under, make sure it's not coming through the front so you can see it, under another thread or a bit of fabric. Or you could, I do it 3 times usually, or you could do it like this and then go through that hole. Whoops. Go through that hole, and you kind of make a little knot. That's not going anywhere. And then you can cut it off pretty close. All right, so I have one more piece of fabric. Where did it go? Here. This one will end up going here, just to cover up, and that'll be Canther stitched as well. That one's a little bit wider, so I'll be able to get the edge of that. Okay, so I'm not going to do that now. Let's have a look at my first page. So far, my only plan is that this daffodil's going on. So I'm thinking over here somewhere, or it could be right in the middle. I'm just going to talk through this, and then I'll show you quickly overcast stitch, and then I've got to get ready to go to training. So at the start of my seasons, I'm going to do a title. So I'm going to embroider spring on here. Like Rach did last week, I'm thinking of trying to get the font that is used in the Edith Holden books. So spring here or in the middle or whatever. And then I want some information about the daffodil or a quote from the books, but I haven't worked that out or looked that up yet. So probably in some of the other places will be some script. I might put another piece of lace or trim. It'll be quite nice up there, or even a bit of fabric. So that is going to be my first page, pretty simple. So I'll show you overcast on this, and then the rest of it will be for next week. And then this will be my second prompt, this page here. So this one here will get more detail in it because I'll do a double page, so I've got more space. Okay, that's a bit annoying. Anyway, the Suffolk puff. It's an old one. is going on there. Old New York 1930s quilt that came from. I bought a lovely quilt on eBay and had it posted. It had some gorgeous Suffolk puffs. They're just a bit bigger than normal. Like, look at the size difference. That's about a normal size. I might have a look, actually. I like that one, but maybe I can tone it down, go a bit more pastel-y, because spring is more pastel. Yeah, so quickly, let me just thread a needle. Where did my other needle go? Oh, over here. So I sew a lot with the same type of needle, which wouldn't be normal practice, but I love sewing with milliner's needles. Now, milliner's needles are usually have a small eye, which is why I'm having trouble threading it, because the eye of the needle is the same width as the shaft of the needle, which means this needle is really good for wrap stitches like French knots and bullion knots, which will come into play later on. But I just like stitching with these because they're easy to pull through because that eye is not bigger. They're quite long needles as well. I don't know. I just like them. And if I can thread it, I'll pretty much do all my stitching with the milliners. All right, overcast stitch. I've just come up through the inside there, leaving a bit of a gap, and then down over the edge. So straight over the edge. I'm sewing with a normal sewing machine cotton in white, an old one. You will barely see. You'll barely see the stitches. Oops, I almost unthreaded that. Got to be careful. So you will barely see the stitches. I'm just going to, hang on a sec, I'm all over the shop. I'm just going to pin that so it stays straight the way I like it. So this was an old embroidery. I actually got this doily for $2 on Marketplace. I got a whole bunch of them. I actually bought 100 for $2 each. And I just said, send me pretty flowers. I got a lot of pretty flowers, and then there's a few I don't like, but that's okay. Other people might like them. But I've actually gone through them plus some other ones I had and pulled out a whole bunch that I'd like to incorporate into this project, which I can show you. So overcast stitch, and I'll go the whole way around the outside of this daffodil. Now I could, if I wanted the stitches to show, do this in a coloured Perle 8 cotton, like the one I showed you before, but this is an orange one, so if I want it to show. But at the moment I'm just going to stitch it down with this, and I'll decide later. So I won't show you any more of that. You just basically go the whole way around. I'll do that off camera. Okay, so last thing I'll show you, I will come back and show you a bit more title page. So the title will go on there and that will get embroidered, so field notes. And then I'm going to thread paint these. Now I was thinking of thread painting in these wools, so the yellow with a little bit of the orangey mustardy colour for the flowers. I was thinking of slightly varying the colour of the leaves to go a bit more with this, a bit more tealy, but I'm not sure yet. I might, because this one's kind of limey coloured, I might keep it a limey colour. We'll see. So the last thing I'm going to show you before I go is just a couple of the doilies I've pulled out for this. Some of my favourite bits and pieces I thought I might add in. So love that one, but I might not end up cutting that one because it's really beautiful. I don't know yet. I'm deciding. I might not cut it. I might keep that one. Who knows? We'll see. That one I thought it's really pretty. That'd be really nice for summer because it's, you know, bright summery colours. This one is a definite for autumn. Okay, we've got some good autumn tones in there. This is just pretty, and I thought I could put that somewhere on my spring page. It's quite old. There's some damage on the edges. The calico's thin. The linen. There was stitches around here that have worn off, so I thought I might use one or two of those flowers. I don't even know where I got this, but I just love it. It's so bright and pretty, and that could be, again, a nice fit fit for summer. Oh, there's another daffodil option. Actually, that's really cute. I might add that on as well. Okay, it's a stained doily. I have no hesitation in cutting that one up. That's pretty. That could go on one of my other spring pages. I would love to keep that one whole. That could go across a double page. Could have some kind of title. That's really pretty. Okay, I want to get one of my birds in somewhere, so it might be that one, or if that's too big, this one would be beautiful. I think, Beck, you gave me that. So that's just a few bits of fabric. And then there's this. But again, this is so pretty, this side and this side, but it's quite big. It might be too big for my page. And what is stained, but I also like this, so who knows? I might use it. We'll see. And then I think I had a few bits and pieces. I had some bits of like lace that I'm going to put on. I pulled these as well. This is super thin. I don't know what it was, a handkerchief, or it's so thin, but I thought that could go somewhere, and you could even fill it in more. And then this is an old piece of tablecloth things. I love the cross stitch ones. So I could fill in with a bit of that. I don't know. I've just been pulling bits. I've got so many more bits. And then I definitely want to put in a bunch of old. I had this one as well. But then, you know, I've got a lot of these, so I have to decide. And then I had some lovely old bits of quilts that I took apart with the feed sack fabric. So some of those fabrics have to go in. Yeah, so anyway, that will do for today. Yeah, so for the moment, that's where I'm at. And hopefully it helps you with some ideas and you have a bit of a better understanding of how things work. So I will see you again next week. Thank you for watching. Bye.